It was 9:47 p.m. on a cold October night in Riverside, Montana, a town so small that everyone knew everyone, and the only gas station on Route 29 had been run by the same family for 43 years, the Hartley family. 3 masked men stormed through the glass doors, guns drawn, voices sharp with rage. They shoved 72-year-old Earl Hartley to the floor, pressed a barrel to his temple, and screamed for the cash. His granddaughter, 16-year-old Macy, stood frozen behind the counter, tears streaming down her face as one of the men grabbed her wrist and yanked her forward. Earl tried to stand. They kicked him down. The register was emptied. The safe was torn open. And then they were gone. Tires screeching into the dark, leaving behind shattered glass, spilled coffee, and a grandfather bleeding from the mouth while his granddaughter sobbed into the phone with 911. But what those 3 men didn't know was that Earl Hartley wasn't just some old man running a gas station. 40 years ago, he'd been a Marine. And 38 years ago, he'd saved the life of a man named Vincent Ironside Cole during a firefight in Lebanon. A man who'd gone on to become the founder of the Iron Ghosts Motorcycle Club, one of the most loyal and respected crews in the Northwest. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to show you what happens when you mess with the wrong family. Vincent hadn't spoken to Earl in over a decade. Life had pulled them in different directions. Earl settled down with his wife, opened the station, raised his son. Vincent rode the open road, built a brotherhood, and lived by one unshakable rule: a debt is never forgotten. But when Vincent's phone rang at 10:03 p.m. that night, and he heard Macy's trembling voice on the other end saying, "Mr. Cole, they hurt my grandpa," everything stopped. He didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. He made one call to his VP, Marcus Reaper Hayes, and said 2 words: "Rally everyone." By 10:47 p.m., over 400 motorcycles were moving through the Montana night like a rolling storm, headlights cutting through the darkness, engines roaring in perfect synchronization. Iron Ghosts, Desert Wolves, Black River Crew, Nomad Kings, clubs that had ridden together in charity runs, funerals, and veteran memorials, all united by a single message passed through encrypted channels: "Earl Hartley needs us." They didn't know the details yet. They didn't need to. When Vincent Cole made a call, you answered. When a brother asked for help, you rode. This is the story of how a small-town robbery turned into a nationwide reckoning, and how 3 men who thought they could disappear into the night learned that some debts can never be outrun. Vincent Cole was 59 years old, with silver threading through his black beard and a scar running from his left eyebrow to his jawline, a permanent reminder of the IED blast that had nearly killed him in 1987. He'd been sitting in his garage in Billings, Montana, working on the carburetor of his 1974 Harley Shovelhead, when his phone buzzed on the workbench. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something in his gut told him to answer. "Mr. Cole." The voice was young, female, shaking. "Who's this?" It's Macy. Macy Hartley. Earl Hartley's granddaughter." Vincent's hand stilled on the wrench. He hadn't heard Earl's name in years. The last time they'd spoken had been at a funeral. Earl's wife, Margaret, had passed from cancer in 2017. Vincent had ridden 12 hours to be there. Earl had gripped his hand, eyes red with grief, and said, "If you ever need anything, brother, you call me." Vincent had nodded, but it was Earl who'd saved his life first. Earl who'd dragged him out of a burning Humvee while enemy fire tore through the sand around them. That debt had never been spoken of again, but it had never been forgotten. "Macy," Vincent said slowly. "What's wrong?" They robbed the station." Her voice cracked. 3 men. They hurt Grandpa. They broke his ribs. They grabbed me and—" She couldn't finish. The sound of her sobbing was enough. Vincent closed his eyes. His jaw tightened. "Where is he now?" "The hospital. They took him by ambulance. The police are here, but they said the men are probably long gone by now. They said there's not much they can do tonight." Vincent stood up. His hand was steady, his voice was steel. "Macy, listen to me. You're gonna be okay. Your grandpa's gonna be okay. I'm coming, and I'm not coming alone." He hung up, walked to the corner of the garage where his leather vest hung on a hook, the Iron Ghosts patch stitched across the back, the words "Loyalty over Blood" embroidered beneath the skull logo. He pulled it on. Then he opened his phone and sent a single text to Marcus Hayes, his VP and the second-in-command of the Iron Ghosts. "Earl Hartley, Riverside, robbed, beaten, rally everyone." Marcus called back in 30 seconds. "How many?" "All of them." There was a pause. Then Marcus said, "I'll make the calls." Vincent walked to his bike, threw his leg over the seat, and kicked the engine to life. The shovel head roared, a deep, guttural sound that echoed through the night. He didn't know who the three men were. He didn't know where they'd gone, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. They'd made a mistake, and by sunrise they'd understand what that mistake cost. Marcus Reaper Hayes was 47 years old, built like a linebacker, with tattoos covering both arms and a reputation for being the most strategic mind in the Iron Ghosts. He'd served in the army for 12 years before joining the club, and he understood one thing better than most. Brotherhood wasn't just a word, it was a covenant. When Vincent's text came through, Marcus didn't hesitate. He opened the encrypted group chat used by Iron Ghost's leadership and typed, "Code Red, Earl Hartley, attacked, Riverside gas station, Route 29, rally point, Riverside city limits, ETA 90 minutes, pass it on." Within minutes, the message spread like wildfire. Iron Ghosts, chapters in Billings, Missoula and Helena. Allied clubs, the Desert Wolves out of Nevada, the Black River Crew from Idaho, the Nomad Kings from Wyoming. Every club that had ever ridden with Vincent, every brother who'd shared a drink or a memorial ride, every man who understood what loyalty meant. The calls went out, the engines started, and the roads began to fill. By 10:30 p.m., Marcus was standing in the parking lot of a truck stop outside Billings, watching as headlights appeared on the horizon. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Motorcycles rolled in from every direction, engines rumbling in a low, unified growl. Harley-Davidsons, Indians, Triumphs, choppers and baggers and old-school cruisers, men in their 20s and men in their 60s, veterans, mechanics, firefighters, teachers. Some had ridden 2 hours. Some had ridden 5. None of them asked why. They already knew. Vincent pulled up at 10:42 p.m., his shovel head glinting under the fluorescent lights. He climbed off, walked to the center of the lot, and raised his hand. The engines quieted. 400 men stood in silence, waiting. "Earl Hartley saved my life 38 years ago," Vincent said, his voice carrying across the cold October air. Tonight, 3 cowards walked into his gas station, beat him to the ground, and terrorized his granddaughter. "The police say they're gone. I say they're not gone far enough." He paused. "We're not looking for a fight. We're looking for justice. We're going to find these men. We're going to make sure they answer for what they did. And we're going to show Earl Hartley that his family isn't alone." A low murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Marcus stepped forward. "We ride clean. No weapons, no violence unless we're defending ourselves. We show up. We show strength. And we let the law do its job, but we make damn sure the law knows we're watching." Vincent nodded. "Let's ride." The engines roared back to life. 400 motorcycles rolled out of the truck stop in perfect formation, a river of headlights and chrome stretching across the highway like a moving constellation. They rode through the night, the sound of their engines echoing across the Montana plains, a thunderous promise that no one who hurt Earl Hartley would escape unseen. This story is unfolding in Riverside, Montana, 11:18 p.m. on October 24, 2025. The town of Riverside had a population of 1,147 people. It had 1 stoplight, 2 churches, a diner that closed at 8 p.m., and a gas station that had been the heart of the community for over 4 decades. The Hartley Gas and Mini Mart wasn't just a place to fill your tank. It was where you caught up on town gossip, where high school kids bought sodas after football practice, where Earl Hartley knew your name and asked about your family. When the robbery happened, the entire town felt it like a punch to the gut. By the time the Iron Ghosts rolled into Riverside at 11:18 p.m., the gas station was still cordoned off with yellow police tape. 2 patrol cars sat in the parking lot, their lights flashing red and blue across the shattered front window. A small crowd had gathered. Neighbors, friends, people who'd known Earl their entire lives. They stood in quiet clusters, arms crossed, faces tight with anger and fear. And then they heard it. The sound started as a distant rumble, like thunder rolling in from the mountains. But it didn't fade. It grew. Louder, closer, deeper. The ground seemed to vibrate beneath their feet. People turned toward the highway, eyes wide, as the first wave of headlights appeared over the ridge. 1 motorcycle. 10, 50, 100, 200, 400. They came in perfect formation, engines synchronized in a deafening roar that shook the windows of every building on Main Street. The Iron Ghosts led the procession, Vincent at the front, his silver beard catching the streetlight as he rolled to a stop directly in front of the gas station. Behind him, row after row of motorcycles lined both sides of the street, stretching for 3 full blocks. Leather vests, skull patches, American flags, men with grey hair and men with tattoos still healing. They parked. They killed their engines. And the silence that followed was heavier than the roar had been. The 2 police officers standing by the patrol cars stared in disbelief. One of them, Deputy Frank Calloway, was a 32-year-old rookie who'd never seen anything like this in his life. The other, Sheriff Dale Morton, was 61 years old and had lived in Riverside since birth. He recognized Vincent immediately. Vincent climbed off his bike and walked forward slowly, hands visible, posture calm. "Sheriff Morton." Dale nodded. "Vincent, we're here for Earl." Dale glanced at the sea of motorcycles behind him. "I can see that. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to make sure those 3 men don't get away with what they did." Dale exhaled slowly. "Vincent, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is a police matter. We've got patrols out. We've got descriptions. We'll find them." Vincent's gaze didn't waver. "With all due respect, Sheriff, you've got 2 patrol cars and a county budget. We've got 400 sets of eyes, and we're not going anywhere until this is done right." Dale looked at the crowd of townspeople watching from the sidewalk. He saw the relief in their eyes, the gratitude, the hope. He sighed. "All right, but you stay peaceful. No vigilante justice. You see something, you call me. Understood?" Vincent nodded. "Understood. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from." Vincent walked back to Marcus and pulled him aside. "We need to move fast. Those 3 have maybe a 2-hour head start. They're either hiding local or they've hit the interstate." Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a map. "Route 29 runs north-south. North takes you toward Canada. South takes you toward Wyoming. If they're smart, they went south. More places to disappear." "They're not smart," Vincent said. "They hit a gas station in a town this small. They didn't think about cameras. They didn't think about consequences. They panicked." "So they're local? Or they're from somewhere close? Small-time criminals, maybe meth heads, maybe just desperate." Vincent paused. "Either way, they left a trail." Marcus turned to 3 men standing nearby: Hank "Wrench" Sullivan, a mechanic with grease-stained hands; Luis "Ghost" Morales, a former Army Ranger with eyes that missed nothing; and Tommy "Birdie" Wells, a tech-savvy younger member who could hack into anything with a screen. "Ghost, take a team and canvass the area. Talk to anyone who was on the road tonight. Wrench, check local garages and chop shops. If they damage their vehicle, they'll need to fix it. Birdie, see if you can pull traffic cam footage from the highway exits." All 3 nodded and moved immediately. Vincent walked toward the gas station, ducking under the police tape. Sheriff Morton frowned but didn't stop him. Inside, the damage was worse than he'd expected. The register was torn open, coins scattered across the floor. The coffee pot was shattered. Blood stained the linoleum near the counter, Earl's blood. Vincent's jaw tightened. He knelt down, studying the floor. Boot prints, size 11, maybe 12. Treads were worn, cheap rubber. He stood and walked to the back room where the safe had been forced open. Crowbar marks, amateur work. Whoever did this wasn't a professional thief. They were opportunists. He pulled out his phone and texted Macy. "What hospital is your grandpa at?" She replied within seconds. "Riverside Memorial, room 214. Vincent walked back outside and climbed onto his bike. He turned to Marcus. "I'm going to the hospital. Keep the search going. Anyone finds anything, they call me first." Marcus nodded. "Be careful." Vincent kicked his engine to life and rode through the quiet streets toward Riverside Memorial Hospital, the only medical facility for 60 miles. The night was cold. The stars were sharp and bright, and somewhere out there, 3 men were about to learn that running wasn't enough. Riverside Memorial Hospital was a small 2-story building with faded yellow paint and a parking lot full of potholes. Vincent parked his bike near the entrance and walked through the automatic doors into the fluorescent-lit lobby. A nurse at the front desk looked up, startled by the sight of a man in a leather vest with a skull patch, but Vincent's expression was calm. "I'm here to see Earl Hartley, room 214. She hesitated, then nodded. "Visiting hours are over, but I'll let it slide." Vincent took the stairs 2 at a time and found room 214 at the end of the hall. The door was half open. Inside, Earl Hartley lay in a hospital bed, his face bruised, his left eye swollen shut, his ribs wrapped in bandages. Macy sat in a chair beside him, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Vincent, she stood quickly. "Mr. Cole," she whispered. Vincent walked to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing calling me." Earl's good eye opened. He turned his head slowly, wincing with pain. When he saw Vincent, a faint smile crossed his battered face. "Vincent, you old bastard." Vincent pulled a chair close and sat down. "Earl, you didn't have to come all the way out here?" "Yes, I did." Earl coughed and pain flashed across his face. He gripped the bed rail. "I knew one of them, the tall one, Marcus Finn, used to work the farms outside town, got mixed up with meth a few years back. Lost his job, lost his family. Last I heard, he was living in a trailer park south of here with 2 other lowlifes." Vincent leaned forward. "You sure it was him?" "I'd bet my life on it. He tried to disguise his voice, but I recognized his eyes. Same kid who used to buy snacks here after school." Earl's voice hardened. "He put a gun to my granddaughter's head, Vincent. That kid I used to give free candy to." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. He forced himself to breathe. "Do you know where this trailer park is?" Macy spoke up. "Sunset Pines. It's about 12 miles south on Route 29. It's not really a trailer park, just a bunch of old mobile homes people abandoned." Vincent stood. He looked at Earl. "I'm gonna make this right." Earl grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't do anything stupid. Don't throw your life away for me." Vincent met his gaze. "You dragged me out of a burning vehicle while bullets were flying. You carried me 2 miles through enemy territory. You saved my life. This isn't throwing it away. This is paying it forward." Earl held his stare for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then do it clean. Always." Vincent turned and walked out of the room, pulling his phone from his pocket. He texted Marcus, "Sunset Pines Trailer Park, 12 miles south, 3 men. Leader is Marcus Finn, local, known meth user. Rally the crew. We move at dawn." By 4:30 a.m., the iron ghosts had surrounded Sunset Pines. The trailer park was exactly what Macy had described. A cluster of 8 rusted mobile homes sitting in a dirt lot, surrounded by dead trees and chain-link fence. Most of the trailers were abandoned, windows boarded up, doors hanging off hinges. But 3 of them showed signs of life. Flickering lights, tire tracks in the dirt, a pickup truck with Montana plates parked near the farthest trailer. Vincent stood on a ridge overlooking the park, binoculars in hand. Marcus crouched beside him. "That's the truck," Marcus said. Matches the description from the gas station. Vincent lowered the binoculars. How many exits? 2. Front gate and a hole in the back fence. We've got both covered. Vincent nodded. We don't go in. We wait for them to come out. And when they do, we make sure the sheriff's already here. Marcus frowned. You're really going to let the cops handle this? I gave Earl my word. We do this clean. Vincent pulled out his phone and dialed Sheriff Morton. The call connected after 3 rings. Sheriff, it's Vincent. We found them. Sunset Pines. 3 men, 1 pickup truck. License plate November Tango 7429. You've got about 15 minutes before they wake up. There was a pause. Then Dale's voice, rough with sleep. You're sure? Positive. All right. Don't do anything until I get there. We'll be waiting. Vincent hung up and turned to the assembled bikers. Over 200 had stayed through the night, engines silent, waiting in the darkness. Sheriff's on his way. We hold position. No one moves until he gives the signal. The sun began to rise, painting the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink. And in the distance, the sound of sirens grew louder. If this story is keeping you hooked, hit that like button. You won't believe what happens next. Sheriff Dale Morton arrived at Sunset Pines at 5:47 a.m. with 4 patrol cars, 2 state troopers, and a K-9 unit. The convoy moved slowly up the dirt road, lights flashing but sirens silent. Dale wanted the element of surprise. He stepped out of his vehicle, the gravel crunching beneath his boots, and walked to where Vincent stood on the ridge overlooking the trailer park. The air was cold, the kind of cold that makes your breath visible, and the first rays of sunlight were just beginning to break over the eastern mountains. This better not be a setup, Vincent, Dale said, his voice low but firm. Vincent handed him the binoculars without a word. Dale raised them to his eyes and scanned the trailer park below. The pickup truck was still there. A faded blue Ford F-150 with Montana plates parked at an angle near the farthest trailer. Smoke rose from a metal chimney pipe on the roof. Fresh tire tracks marked the dirt. Dale zoomed in on the license plate. November Tango 7429. It matched the description from the gas station security footage. He lowered the binoculars and turned to his deputy, Frank Calloway. Surround the trailer, set up a perimeter. No one goes in until I give the order, and tell the K-9 unit to be ready in case they run. Frank nodded and relayed the commands over his radio. Within minutes, officers spread out in a wide arc around the trailer park, taking positions behind abandoned vehicles, fence posts, and piles of scrap metal. The state troopers moved to block the front gate and the hole in the back fence. The K-9 handler stood ready with a German shepherd named Max, leash taut. The dog's ears perked and alert. Dale grabbed a megaphone from his patrol car and walked to the center of the perimeter. He raised it to his lips, his voice amplified and echoing across the cold morning air. Marcus Finn, this is Sheriff Dale Morton of Riverside County. The trailer is surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Silence. Nothing moved inside the trailer. The smoke from the chimney continued to rise in a thin, steady line. Dale waited 30 seconds, then repeated the command, his tone harder this time. Marcus Finn, you have 30 seconds to exit the trailer with your hands visible, or we are coming in. This is your only warning. Vincent stood 20 feet away, arms crossed, his eyes locked on the trailer. Marcus Hayes was beside him, along with 24 iron ghosts who'd remained through the night. They said nothing. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was a message. We're watching. We're waiting. And we won't forget. 10 seconds passed. 20. 25. Then the door creaked open. A man stumbled out, mid-30s, rail-thin, with hollow cheeks and bloodshot eyes. His hair was greasy and unkempt, his clothes stained and torn. His hands were raised above his head, trembling so violently they looked like they might shake loose from his wrists. "Don't shoot!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "Don't shoot! I didn't do anything! Get on the ground now!" Dale shouted. Marcus Finn dropped to his knees, then fell forward onto his stomach, pressing his face into the dirt. Two officers rushed forward, weapons drawn, and pinned him down. One of them yanked his arms behind his back and snapped handcuffs around his wrists. The metallic click echoed in the silence. Marcus was sobbing now, his body convulsing with fear and withdrawal. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to hurt him." Dale ignored him and called out again through the megaphone. "Two more inside. Come out with your hands up. You have 10 seconds." Another long pause. Then the door opened again, slower this time. Two more men emerged, both younger than Marcus, both clearly high. The first was a kid who couldn't have been more than 22, with acne scars and a faded tattoo of a scorpion on his neck. The second was older, maybe 28, with a shaved head and dead eyes. They stumbled out into the sunlight, squinting like animals pulled from a burrow. Their hands were raised, but their movements were sluggish, uncoordinated. "On the ground," Dale commanded. They complied without resistance, dropping to their knees and then flat onto their stomachs. The officers moved in, cuffed them, and dragged all three men to separate patrol cars. Marcus Finn was placed in Dale's vehicle. The other two were split between the state troopers. Dale walked to his patrol car and opened the back door. Marcus sat hunched over, head down, tears streaming down his face. Dale crouched beside the door so they were eye level. "You robbed Earl Hartley's gas station 3 nights ago." Marcus didn't respond. "You shoved a 72-year-old man to the floor. You kicked him in the ribs. You held a gun to his 16-year-old granddaughter's head and made her open the safe." Still nothing. Dale's voice dropped, colder now. "You know what the worst part is, Marcus? Earl knew you. He told me himself. He said you used to come into that gas station when you were a kid. He said he used to give you free candy after school when your mom couldn't afford it. He said you were a good kid once." Dale leaned closer. "And this is how you repaid him." Marcus finally looked up, his face twisted with anguish. "I didn't want to hurt him," he choked out. "We just needed money. We weren't supposed to. I didn't know it was Earl's place. I didn't recognize it until we were already inside, and then it was too late. I panicked. I didn't know what to do." Dale stood up. "You're right. You didn't know what to do. Because you've been high for so long you forgot how to be human." He slammed the door shut and walked back to where Vincent stood. Vincent nodded toward the patrol car. "That's the one who hurt Earl?" "That's him." Vincent's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "What happens now? Now we take them to county lockup. They'll be arraigned on Monday. Armed robbery, assault, terroristic threatening. They're looking at 10 to 20 years each." Vincent looked at the three men sitting in the patrol cars. Broken, strung out, desperate. Part of him felt pity. Part of him felt nothing at all. "Earl said he used to give that kid candy." Dale nodded. "Meth does that. Takes someone good and turns them into something else. Maybe prison will straighten him out." "Maybe." Dale pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his grey hair. "Vincent, I'm going to say something, and I want you to hear me. What you did here, bringing 400 men, surrounding this place, making sure we couldn't ignore this case, that was either the smartest or the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But it worked, and Earl's going to get justice because of it." Vincent looked at him. "All we did was show up. That's more than most people do." Dale extended his hand. Vincent shook it. As the patrol cars pulled away, sirens wailing, Vincent turned to Marcus Hayes. "Let's go tell Earl it's over." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, let's go home." 3 days after the arrest, Vincent returned to Riverside Memorial Hospital. The media storm had been relentless. Local news, state news, even a segment on a national morning show about the biker brotherhood that brought justice to a small town. Reporters had tried to interview Vincent a dozen times. He'd refused every single one. This wasn't about glory. This wasn't about headlines. It was about keeping a promise to a man who'd saved his life 38 years ago. The hospital was quieter now. The emergency rush had passed. Vincent walked through the automatic doors into the lobby, nodded at the same nurse who'd let him through 3 nights earlier, and took the stairs up to the second floor. Room 214 was at the end of the hall, just like before. The door was half open. Inside, Earl Hartley sat propped up in bed, his ribs still bandaged, but the swelling around his eyes significantly reduced. He was wearing a hospital gown and reading a worn paperback Western novel. When he saw Vincent, he set the book down and smiled. "You old bastard," Earl said, his voice still rough but stronger than before. "I figured you'd be halfway to Idaho by now." Vincent pulled a chair close and sat down. "Couldn't leave without checking on you." "I'm fine. Doctors say I can go home tomorrow. Macy's been here every day, driving the nurses crazy." Earl chuckled, then winced and clutched his ribs. "Damn, still hurts to laugh." Vincent leaned forward. "They got all three of them. Marcus Finn and the two kids he was running with. Sheriff Morton charged them with armed robbery, aggravated assault, and terroristic threatening. They're looking at 10 to 20 years each." Earl's expression darkened. "Marcus Finn. Jesus, I still can't believe it was him." He shook his head slowly. "You know, I remember when that kid was 10 years old. He used to come into the station after school every day, buy a Coke and a bag of chips. His mom was working 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Sometimes he didn't have money, so I'd let him take the snacks anyway. Told him it was on credit." Earl's voice cracked. "And now he's the one who put me in here." Vincent didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Sometimes people broke. Sometimes the world pushed them too hard, and they snapped. Marcus Finn had made his choices. Now he'd live with the consequences. Earl cleared his throat. "What about the other 2? Followers. Meth addicts. Marcus was the leader. They're all going down, but he'll get the worst of it." Earl nodded. "Good. I hope prison straightens him out. I really do. But if it doesn't—" He trailed off, staring at the ceiling. "I used to believe everyone could be saved, Vincent. I used to think that if you just gave people enough chances, they'd come around. But after what he did to Macy—" His voice hardened. "I hope he rots." Vincent placed a hand on Earl's shoulder. "He won't hurt anyone again. That's what matters." The door opened, and Macy walked in carrying a paper bag from the diner down the street. She stopped when she saw Vincent, and her face lit up. "Mr. Cole, you came back. Told you I would." She set the bag on the bedside table and pulled out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "I brought Grandpa his favorite, pastrami on rye." She handed it to Earl, then turned to Vincent. "Have you eaten? I can go get you something." Vincent shook his head. "I'm fine, but thank you." Macy sat down in the chair on the other side of Earl's bed. She looked different now, still young, still scared in some ways, but there was a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The robbery had changed her. Vincent recognized that look. He'd seen it in the mirror after Lebanon, after the IED, after the months of recovery and nightmares. Trauma left marks that never fully healed. "Macy," Vincent said gently, "how are you holding up?" She looked down at her hands. "I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, but I'm getting there." She paused. "I keep thinking about that night, about the gun, about how close it was. I keep waking up thinking they're still here." Earl reached over and took her hand. "They're not. They're locked up, and they're never getting out." "I know, but it doesn't feel real yet." Vincent leaned forward. "It won't feel real for a while. That's normal. Your brain's still processing what happened. But you did everything right, Macy. You stayed calm. You called for help. You survived. That takes strength." She looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified. Being strong doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are." She wiped her eyes and nodded. "Thank you for coming, for bringing all those people. I didn't think anyone would care." Vincent's voice was firm. "You're Earl's family. That makes you our family, and we take care of our own." Earl squeezed Macy's hand. "You see, I told you, we're not alone." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, eating sandwiches and talking about small things. The weather, the repairs needed at the gas station, the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. It felt normal, human, and for the first time since the robbery, Vincent saw a flicker of peace return to Earl's face. Before he left, Vincent stood and placed a business card on the bedside table. It had his name, his phone number, and the Iron Ghost's logo. "If either of you ever need anything at all, you call me, day or night, it doesn't matter." Earl picked up the card and held it like it was something precious. "I will." "And Vincent?" "Yeah? Thank you for everything, for remembering, for showing up, for proving that the old promises still matter." Vincent nodded. "They always will." He walked to the door, stopped, and looked back one more time. Earl and Macy were sitting side by side, holding hands, looking stronger together than they had alone, and Vincent knew, without a doubt, that they were going to be okay. Vincent walked out of Riverside Memorial Hospital into the cool October morning. The sun was higher now, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the faint scent of pine from the mountains in the distance. His shovelhead sat where he'd left it, chrome glinting in the sunlight like a beacon. He climbed onto the seat, felt the familiar weight of the machine beneath him, and started the engine. The rumble was deep and steady, a sound that had become as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. Marcus Hayes was waiting by his bike across the parking lot, leaning against the handlebars, arms crossed. He looked tired. They all did. The past 3 days had been a blur of adrenaline, tension, and vigilance, but it was over now. The bad guys were in jail. Earl was healing. Macy was safe. The promise had been kept. "Heading out?" Marcus asked. "Yeah," Vincent said. "Time to go home." "That was a hell of a thing we did." Vincent looked at him. "We didn't do anything special, Marcus. We just showed up. That's all brotherhood is, showing up when it matters." Marcus nodded slowly, processing the words. "You think Earl's going to be all right? He's tougher than he looks. He survived Lebanon. He survived losing his wife. He'll survive this." And the girl? Vincent thought about Macy's face, the fear, the tears, the quiet strength beneath it all. "She'll be fine too. She's got her grandpa, and now she knows she's got 400 uncles willing to ride 12 hours if she needs them." He paused. "That kind of support, it changes you. It reminds you that you're not alone in the world." Marcus smiled faintly. "Damn right." Vincent kicked his bike into gear, feeling the vibration travel up through his spine. "Let's ride." They pulled out of the parking lot together, side by side, engines roaring in perfect harmony. The road stretched out before them, long, empty, beautiful. Highway 29 cut through the heart of Montana like a scar across the landscape, flanked by rolling hills and distant mountains still capped with snow. The sky was a brilliant blue, unmarred by clouds. It was the kind of morning that made you remember why you rode in the first place. The freedom, the solitude, the sense that the world was bigger than your problems and that the road always led somewhere worth going. As they rode, other iron ghosts fell in behind them. 20 bikes, then 50, then 100. They'd been waiting in Riverside, camped out in parking lots and empty fields, refusing to leave until they knew Earl was safe and justice had been served. Now they formed a convoy, a rolling thunder of chrome and leather and loyalty. They didn't need to speak, they didn't need to plan, they just rode, following Vincent because that's what you did when your president led the way. They passed through small towns with names like Copper Creek and Pine Ridge, places where people stopped on the sidewalk to watch the convoy pass, where kids pointed and waved, where old men in flannel shirts nodded with respect. The Iron Ghosts had become something more than just a motorcycle club in the past 3 days. They'd become a symbol, a reminder that there were still people who believed in standing up for what was right, that there were still men who kept their promises. That brotherhood wasn't just a word printed on a patch, it was a way of life. Vincent thought about Earl dragging him from that burning Humvee all those years ago. He could still feel the heat of the flames, the acrid smoke burning his lungs, the weight of Earl's hands gripping his vest and pulling him through the wreckage. Earl had risked his life that day. He hadn't hesitated. He hadn't calculated the odds. He'd just acted, And for 38 years, Vincent had carried that debt like a stone in his chest, waiting for the chance to repay it. Now, finally, the debt was settled. But even as he thought that, Vincent knew it wasn't true. Because real brotherhood wasn't about debts. It wasn't about keeping score. It was about being there. It was about showing up when someone needed you, not because you owed them, but because it was the right thing to do. Earl had saved his life in Lebanon. Vincent had helped save Earl's family in Riverside, but the cycle didn't end there. Someday, someone else would need help. And when that day came, Vincent would ride again, because that's what it meant to be an iron ghost. They stopped for gas in a town called Willow Springs, a dusty little place with one pump and a convenience store that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1987. Vincent filled his tank, bought a bottle of water, and stood by his bike, watching the rest of the convoy pull in. Wrench, Ghost, Birdie, Reaper, men he'd ridden with for years, men he trusted with his life. They didn't talk much as they filled their tanks and stretched their legs. They didn't need to. The ride said everything. Marcus walked over, peeling the wrapper off a beef jerky stick. You ever wonder what would have happened if Macy hadn't called you? Vincent looked at him. Yeah, every damn day. You think the cops would have caught them? Maybe, eventually. But it wouldn't have been fast enough, and Earl would have spent the rest of his life wondering if anyone cared. Marcus chewed thoughtfully. So, we made a difference. We did. Good. Marcus tossed the jerky wrapper into a trash can. Then it was worth it. They climbed back onto their bikes and rode on, the convoy stretching out behind them like a steel serpent, winding through the Montana wilderness. The sun climbed higher, the air grew warmer, and the miles melted away beneath their wheels. By the time they reached the outskirts of Billings, it was late afternoon. The convoy began to break apart as members peeled off toward their homes, their garages, their families. Vincent and Marcus rode together to the Iron Ghost's clubhouse, a converted warehouse on the edge of town with a faded mural of a skull and crossbones painted on the side. They parked their bikes in the lot and walked inside. The clubhouse was empty except for two younger members playing pool in the corner. Vincent walked to the bar, poured himself a whiskey, and sat down on a stool. Marcus joined him. You gonna tell the rest of the club what happened? Marcus asked. Vincent sipped his drink. I'll call a meeting next week. Let everyone know how it went down. Make sure they understand we did it clean. No violence, no vigilante justice, just presence. You think they'll be proud? I think they'll understand why it mattered. Marcus nodded. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of billiard balls clacking in the background. Then Marcus said, You ever think about retiring? Hanging up the vest? Vincent looked at him. Why would I do that? You're almost 60, brother. Most guys your age are thinking about fishing and grandkids. Vincent smiled faintly. I'll retire when I'm dead. Marcus laughed. Fair enough. Vincent finished his whiskey and stood. I'm heading home. Got a long night ahead of me. Engine rebuild on the shovelhead. You ever gonna finish that bike? Nope. That's the point. Marcus shook his head, grinning. You're a stubborn bastard, you know that? Always have been. Vincent walked back out into the parking lot, climbed onto his bike, and rode the last few miles to his house. A small ranch-style place on the outskirts of Billings, with a two-car garage and a yard full of motorcycle parts. He pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the silence. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind, but now, finally, it was over. Earl was safe. Macy was safe. The promise had been kept. And Vincent could go back to his quiet life of rebuilding engines, riding on weekends, and waiting for the next call. Because there would be another call. There always was. Someone else would need help. Someone else would be in trouble. And when that day came, Vincent would answer. He'd rally the crew. He'd ride through the night. He'd show up. Because that's what it meant to be an Iron Ghost. That's what it meant to be a brother. Vincent climbed off his bike, walked into his garage, and turned on the overhead light. The shovelhead sat on the workbench, partially disassembled, waiting for him. He picked up a wrench, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. Outside, the Montana sky turned from blue to orange to deep purple as the sun set behind the mountains. The world kept turning. Life went on. But somewhere in the distance, the rumble of motorcycle engines echoed like a promise, a reminder that when the call came, the brotherhood would ride. Always. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If it moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because there are more stories of loyalty, justice, and redemption coming your way. These are the tales of ordinary people who do extraordinary things when it matters most. Tales of promises kept, debts repaid, and families, both blood and chosen, who stand together when the world tries to tear them apart. Ride safe, stay strong, and never forget. Brotherhood isn't just a word, it's a way of life, and the road is always calling.